Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. Yousaf has made his choice. After the appalling comments by the likes of Ross Greer and Maggie Chapman about Hamas and the massacre of the innocents, the slaughter of the babies, the slaughter of the women, the R's, the terrible things that have happened, and their support for Hamas, he's come out and instead of saying to the Greens, enough's enough, you've got to go now, your stance is unacceptable, because the vast majority of people find it so. The vast majority of people find that their views are despicable, inhumane, and just god-awful. And instead of using that opportunity to get rid of the Greens, Yousaf has stood by them and said, no, they have to stay in government. He is aligning himself with people who think shooting babies in the face is acceptable. And that means he thinks shooting babies in the face is acceptable. He thinks R-ing and murdering women, stripping them, parading their dead bodies and abusing their dead bodies on lorries in front of crowds is acceptable. That's the First Minister of Scotland. He is no longer fit for office. He is a man who aligns himself with such inhumanity. He would probably align himself with what went on in the camps in Germany during the Second World War, because it would be no different. The treatment of one set of humans just like the other. He may as well go and get himself a nice Hugo Boss outfit and a Mercedes, because he is so pro-fascist. He is so anti-humanitarian. He is nothing more than an apologist for this group, Hamas. He is someone who agrees with their ends and with the methodology of their ends. He should not be allowed to represent ordinary people. There should be an upswelling of anger, and this man should be driven from office and his party with it. He had an opportunity to step aside. He chose not to. He chose himself to align with Hamas. Here goes. I've taken about 4 attempts to get through this without losing it, so I'm only going to do piecemeal bits, because as I read through it, I just keep feeling the bile rising inside me. But we'll go through this. Yousaf stands by the Greens as he reveals his parents-in-law are trapped in Gaza. I don't care about his parents-in-law. I just care that this man is now standing by the Greens. He's agreeing with what Maggie Chapman said. And she is saying that it's acceptable for all these terrible things to happen. And now so's he. He is pro-Hamas. He is pro the slaughter of the women and children. He's pro that. And look at the sad face he's trying to put on. The give a fuck face, as we call it. He doesn't care. He just doesn't care. He's got to try and look like he's a human being. But we know he's empty inside. There is no humanity in that body. It's filled with vile self-loathing and loathing for Jews, white people, English people, probably himself. Hatred of everyone. It's all he's got. He's got no spine. He's got no balls. He's got no ability to stand up and say that these things are wrong, and that he's going to act on it by firing the Greens. Because that, as I say, would take a spine. And Mr. Jellyfish hasn't got one, has he? And he's certainly a bit Ken doll down the front. But what's worse is what he said about people who asked him to get rid of the Greens. Yousaf has dismissed calls to end the Butte House Agreement as crass. Now, that's like saying, oh, you know, you complain about what Maggie Chapman says. You're the crass one. Never mind what she said. Never mind the lack of humanity that she showed. Never mind the fact that she is a piece of human shit. You're crass if you complain about that. I don't care about Yousaf. I don't care about Yousaf's family. I don't care about anything. I want Scotland led by someone who is not a piece of uncaring, inhumane, bigoted, racist shit. And unfortunately, that is apparently what we have. We got someone who watches 900 people being slaughtered, the innocents slaughtered, the women slaughtered, the children slaughtered, and who says it's absolutely fine and acceptable. And we know he thinks that because Chapman is still part of the Greens and in government. There we go. I'm not going to go too deep because every time I do go through and read the story I get angry, but I am going to read this bit. And this was by, who was this? Jackson Carlaw. He used to be the leader there. Anyway, Jackson Carlaw asked him this question. They said, I would like to ask you, this is to Yousaf, if you agree with the comments made by Maggie Chapman and if they reflect the current position of the SNP Green government. And if not, and given the brutality of Hamas's actions, you will dismiss Green ministers from the Scottish government and terminate the Butte House Agreement because appearing to excuse the actions of Hamas should be unacceptable for any party in Scotland, especially given their recent attacks. And I think that's a fair question. And he felt that no, he wasn't going to terminate the Butte House Agreement, and therefore he agrees with what's happened in Israel. He agrees with Hamas. He thinks that's perfectly acceptable. And you know what? That explains the man through and through, doesn't it? In response to the criticism, the Scottish Greens finally, 3 days later, issued a statement condemning Hamas, but also calling for the Israeli government to be held account for war crimes because they just can't help themselves, can they? And when they said they did it, they got Ross Greer, the little Ross whose balls haven't dropped yet, to come out and make some mealy-mouthed apology because he'd already sort of praised Hamas for what they'd done, and they made him come out and do this apology. But it wasn't a real apology. It was a shitty little apology that nobody believes because nobody thinks anything of that waste of human skin. I'm getting angry again. I've got to think about it. But it is unjustifiable. But the very fact that Scotland's First Minister seems to think that it's acceptable, that it's right, and that he's going to stand by the likes of Maggie Chapman, I think we need to go en masse to Holyrood and demand that he is not only chased from office and hounded out and forced to resign there and then, but then handed over for justice. Hand him over to the Israelis. Hand him over to the Israelis, or at least the crowd. And Chapman. Him and Chapman. Let's put them together. Let's see if they still stand side by side as you show them the lamppost. I bet he changes his mind pretty damn quick then, especially when if you do Chapman first. Anyway, I shall stop there and come up. And my God, I can't believe I've actually got through it without blowing my top. So there you go. You have it. The First Minister of Scotland, pro-Hamas, pro the slaughter of the innocents, won't condemn a woman, won't throw the Greens out, stands by the Greens, a party who think that that's perfectly acceptable. The 900 dead, that's acceptable. Attacking women, that's acceptable. Parading their bodies, that's acceptable. Shooting babies in the face, that's acceptable. But then this is a party that wants to sexualise children and reduce the age of consent and wants to get people to get 5-year-olds to write little stories about how they touch themselves so that they can read it. That's the Greens and the SNP for you. They'd have done well in the 30s in Germany, wouldn't they? They'd have all been camp guards, that's for sure. Anyway, I shall stop there because it's an awful subject. I can't believe he didn't get rid of the Greens. I should not know better, of course, because he wouldn't want to be seen as being pro-Israeli. People down the mosque wouldn't like it, would they? Till next time, stay safe, stay well, and for God's sake, if you're anywhere near there and if you see Chapman on the street, remonstrate with her. Tell her exactly what you think of her. Till next time.